Did you know that there are 9 NHL teams right now that do not have captains? 9 NHL teams. They are in alphabetical order: Anaheim, Arizona, Boston, Calgary, Philly, Seattle, St. Louis. It's been a bit out of alphabetical order. Winnipeg, and the Vancouver Canucks. So I want to show you something. I want to show you the list of teams that don't have captains. And as many of you said, that's almost 1/3 of the league for sure. So here we go. I just said Anaheim, Arizona, Boston, Calgary, Philly, Seattle, St. Louis, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. Sidney Crosby is the longest tenure captain, holding the position for the Penguins. Wow. For basically 16 seasons now, 16 years. Very, very impressed. So here we go. I just talked about the no captains. We got Kyle Okposo in Buffalo, Jordan Staal in Carolina, Jonathan Toews in Chicago, but he's not going to play for them this year. Landeskog in Colorado, Boone Jenner in Columbus, Jamie Benn in Dallas, Dylan Larkin, Detroit, Connor McDavid in Edmonton, Barkov in Florida, Kopitar in LA, Jared Spurgeon in Minnesota, Suzuki in Montreal, Yossi in Nashville. We got Heischer in New Jersey, Anders Lee in New York, Trouba in the other New York, Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa, no captain in Philly, Crosby, as I said, Couture in San Jose, Stamkos in Tampa, Tavares in Toronto, nothing for Vancouver, Mark Stone in Vegas, and Ovechkin in Washington, no captain in Winnipeg. So 9 out of 32 teams, so somewhere between 25 and 30% of teams do not have a captain. And then you obviously, a lot of the best players in the league right now are captains. When you look at guys like McDavid, like McDavid, like Barkov, like Yossi, Brady Tkachuk, Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, Stone. So a lot of the best players in the entire NHL. Now, that doesn't mean you need a captain, because we just talked about that there are 9 teams that don't have a captain right now. So what does that mean? What does that mean for the Vancouver Canucks in particular? Now, some of you might say maybe the role of a captain is starting to diminish, because we talk about a lot of teams have these leadership groups. A lot of these teams have alternate captains, but they don't name a head captain. And we know that a lot of the roles of a captain, actual true on ice roles, are things like being the one to go talk to the referee when you need a clarification on a decision, or a clarification after a replay review, or whatever it may be. But any of the alternate captains can do that. And when you look at the Vancouver Canucks in particular, they've had a lot of captains and alternative captains. I'll try and make this a little bit bigger. So even, that's way too big. Oh, maybe that's good. So even last season, Horvat was the captain. And then what you had there was, how do I close this? Did I break this? You had Ekman Larson, who's now gone, Hughes, Miller, and Pettersson. And oftentimes the Canucks like to have, next time I think I should do an ad blocker or something. Or, I'm going to a different site. Who knows what's going on here? Canucks captains. But what I was going to say is they're oftentimes, aside from the captain, the Canucks like to have 2 defensemen and 2 forwards as their alternates. So here's this is a bad list because it doesn't have the alternate captains. But we won't go through the alternate captains anyways. But remember one year it was like when it was Henrik as the captain, I believe it was Bo and Sutter and Tanev and Edler. So 2 forwards, 2 defensemen who were the alternate captains or assistant captains. But if you look at the true captain history to make it for the Canucks, you see, we know it was Horvat, and then when he got traded to the Islanders, we didn't replace him. Then before that is Henrik, Roberto for 2 seasons, Marcus Naslund, Messier for a couple seasons, Linden, and then the list goes on and on. So in recent memory, from when most of you guys have been fans, I think you're looking at here. Naslund to Luongo to Sedin to Horvat. Naslund to Luongo to Sedin to Horvat. And again, I won't pull it up now because I don't want to get a virus on my computer, but we've always had a long list of alternate captains. And like I said, last year, we know it was OEL and Hughes, the two defensemen, and then Miller and Petey, the two forwards. Prior to that, when Henrik was captain, it was Bo and Sutter, two forwards, and it was Edler and Tanev, two defensemen. So it's not always a perfect mix of 2 and 2. But my point is, some teams, almost like I said, 30% of the league, do not have a true head captain. I see a lot of you in the chat talking about, well, what really is the role of a captain now, especially of alternates or assistants, whatever the A stands for. More players, I think, can talk to the referee, and sometimes the captain may be more of a figurehead. So there's all those reasons to have a captain. Of course, it's the one guy who you expect to be able to stand up in front of the media. And Horvat, even though a little bit boring, admittedly, but Horvat was able to stand in front of the media. We know Henrik was good with the media. We know Luongo got good with the media eventually. We know that Marcus Naslund was pretty good with the media. Linden was great with the media. So generally, the captains here in Vancouver have been good with the media, and that is an important part of a captaincy role as well, to stand in front of the cameras when the team doesn't play well, and to stand in front of the cameras too when the team does play well. But usually after win, everyone wants to talk to the media, or at least everyone doesn't mind talking to the media, especially if a guy scores a really good goal or hits a milestone or whatever it may be. So there's all these things to think about when it comes to captaincy. So what I'm going to talk about now for the next 3 minutes is outline the case. So the case, captain versus no captain. 70% of the teams have one, 30% don't. A lot of the best players in the NHL are the captains. That goes without saying. Do you absolutely need one, though? No, because 30% of the teams don't have one. And again, I think the bottom line for me is, what are you trying to accomplish with the captaincy? Do you want to establish a new young leader like Bo Horvat when he was named captain from Henrik? Do you want to show that undeniably that this is the guy we're going to hitch our wagon to? Do you want to help with a contract extension? I'll get to that in a second. So here are some reasons why you want to, and maybe there's just a guy that the players respect so much on and off the ice that it's a no-brainer. The reasons for not having a captain is you have 4 alternates. Maybe there's not a clear guy, a head and shoulders above everyone else, and maybe you believe so much in the leadership of your room that you do not need to name one as captain. So I'm going to outline. So that's, I guess, the first question, and I'll take all your questions and your comments about it after the break. But the first part is, do you even need a captain? So that's the first part. If your answer is no, then boom, done. We don't have to talk about any alternatives or options, because you might be of the mind that you don't need a captain. But let's say, no, I would like the Vancouver Canucks to have a captain. Dare I say, it would be down to 3 players, I think. Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and JT Miller. There's no one else that is, from a skill standpoint and a longevity standpoint, that we expect to be here and to be that much of a leader. Demko is very well respected by his teammates, but I think it's clear that the goalie as a captain doesn't really work out too well. And I'm not sure if you're going with more of a Beauvillier, a Garland, a Besser. They're great guys. Besser could be an alternate now that I think about it, but they're great guys, but I'm not sure if they're captain material. So, we could go through all 21 guys, 23 guys on the roster, but I'm going to focus on PD, Hughes, and Miller. I'm going to build the case for. I'm going to build the case against. BCBC says Clay for captain. Cannot Clay for captain. I think I'd be good. But let's build the case for and against each of these players for a couple minutes, and then I will talk about my trip. We'll go Mitchell sponsor read, and then I'll get all of your feedback as well. So, the first part, why would it be Elias Pettersson? Well, you could argue that he's the most talented and best player on the team. You could argue between Pettersson and Hughes, but you could argue that Pettersson is the best player on the team. You could argue that he'll follow a relatively successful line of Marcus Naslund, Henrik Sedin, of Swedish captains. Doesn't have to be a center, winger, defenseman, doesn't matter, but you could follow that line of thinking. You could follow that he's probably the most determined, most competitive player on the ice. I've certainly seen it at the charity golf tournaments. And you could also throw in the fact that, does that help? Does that help signing him to long-term extension, the promise of captaincy? I don't think it's the end all and be all. It's not the primary reason why you do it, but if it helps, I'm sure the Canucks would consider that as well. He's also getting much better in front of the media, more comfortable with the media. So those are all reasons for Elias Pettersson. A couple of reasons against it, and I didn't even write these out or type these up. I'm just kind of talking, riffing off the top of my head here. I'm not sure if he's that comfortable in front of the media, though. He's getting better, but I'm not sure if he's completely comfortable in front of the media. I'm not convinced he actually wants the captaincy. Not because he doesn't like the players or like leadership or the team, but I remember him doing an interview with Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman around All-Star time in Florida, I believe. And when the captaincy was floated by him, his answer was kind of non-committal. Again, not non-committal to the team, but he got the sense that he wouldn't feel like it's a burden, but he doesn't need it to validate him. So there are some reasons for Elias Pettersson, for and against. Let's move to Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes, I think from a captain standpoint, his stock is rising. So as a pure player, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, got some Norris Trophy votes. I saw the NHL.com, maybe I'll vlog about it, NHL.com list that came out today. He's ranked as the 10th best defenseman in the league with obviously potential to crack the top 5 very, very soon. Some would say he's already in the top 5 right now. So he just as Pettersson, you could argue, is the Canucks' most talented player. Hughes is right up there as well. Hughes is very well spoken. He's very smart, and he's very articulate. And I think compared to Petey, he's more comfortable in front of the media. And I think with Hughes, I got to be careful how I say this. Petey's thoughtful, he's smart, but I think with Hughes, you'll get a more thoughtful answer, or at least he would be able to articulate it a bit more clearly than Pettersson. And I hope that comes across the right way. I'm just talking very honestly. I think Hughes is just better to listen to than Petey, quite frankly. So for those reasons, I could see Hughes being, and he signed for a few more years too. So I could see Hughes being a great candidate for a captaincy. And I really think his stock as a captain has risen in the past few months or so, starting at the end of last season. And I know Rick Tocchet really likes him too. Can I make an argument against having him as captain? Well, most of the guys I mentioned are forwards. You can have obviously a defense like Roman Josi, a defenseman as a captain, but generally I see it's more forwards. But that's not the reason why you're not going to name Quinn Hughes as your captain. I actually don't see a lot of drawbacks to naming Hughes as the captain. I don't know if you guys do. Would be interested to read it in the chat after the break. But is that help me think of some drawbacks, negatives to Quinn Hughes being the captain. So there's some thoughts on Quinn Hughes. I'm not saying that I'd pick him, but I'm just thinking maybe I'm having trouble finding out for negatives or cons for that. And then there's JT Miller. I really like him. I know not everyone does. Most people love his offensive ability. Not so sold on him on defense. Still trying to figure out, is he most effective as a first line winger as opposed to a second line center, which I think that's where he'll start the season. Pros to JT Miller, good player, 99 points a season ago. Very competitive, very passionate, very transparent, very honest, not afraid to say what he thinks. So some challenges to Miller: can lose his temperature. Yeah, he always loses his thermometer, so he can't take his temperature. He loses his temper. His passion can kind of go overboard, slamming sticks against crossbars and everything, yelling at his teammates. I do think, and we talked about this a lot, you guys, on this channel, I do think it comes from a really good place, a competitive place, but he's not always the most composed. And I think with Miller, he's kind of like one of those guys where half the group would really listen to him, buy into everything he says, and maybe even be scared of him. And the other half would be kind of roll their eyes. Oh, there he goes again, kind of thing. Maybe that's being a little bit harsh. But so you can see the trick with JT Miller. Another pro is he signed for 8 years now for $7 million a year. No, 7 years for eight. I have it backwards. 7 years for $8 million a year. So with a no movement clause. So he's going to be here for all those years. So there's some pros and cons to JT Miller as your captain. So I've kind of laid out the case for all three, PD, Hughes, and Miller. I know some of you are writing it in the comments, which is great, but I'm actually not going to get to your comments for another 10 or 15 minutes, but I promise I will get to some of your comments. Actually, no, I'm going to get you to rewrite your comments after the break, which is what I like to do.